About a year ago, a buddy of mine bought a first-gen Audi R8 GT, so I thought it might have been an interesting idea to test drive the new Audi R8 and bring it up to his house up near Columbia, New York, and put the two back to back to see if the new one was actually better than the old one. Thankfully, Audi was very helpful and decided to lend me an Audi R8 for a week. The only problem was it was about a year later and he had already sold his Audi R8 for a McLaren 570S. While it's a great upgrade for him, it really didn't work for my story very well. Nevertheless, I soldiered on. Audi lent me the R8 for a week and I took it up to Columbia, New York, and drove it around some stunning twisty mountain roads alongside a McLaren 570S and an Aston Martin Vantage V12 with a manual. Needless to say, it was a pretty fun day. After about 250 miles of really boring highway driving, I finally made it to New York, and it was time to actually unleash the R8's V10 alongside some other supercars on some great roads.
Well, I finally made it to the meetup spot, and I just want to show you guys 15.5 mpg on the way here. That's right, I actually got some decent mileage in a V10. Alright, well, gonna stop off, have a little bit of lunch or something, and meet up with everybody, and then we're gonna drive some cool cars. And I'll show you what other cars are gonna be joining us on this drive, and it's gonna be some good ones, so stick around.
With me on that day were Scott and Chris from Limited Slip Log. Scott's the one with the 570S, while Chris has the Aston Martin Vantage V12. Both cars are really different from each other, and the Vantage is really different from both the McLaren and the Audi, so it was really interesting to see how the Audi stacked up against a genuine supercar and a front-engine British muscle car.
So we are finally up in the very, very beautiful area of, I think it's called Columbia, New York. And, you know, got some supercars going today. We have the McLaren 570S and an Aston Martin Vantage V12. That's the previous gen Vantage, not this new one. And it's the V12 with a 6-speed. That's a really cool car. All three of these cars are epic. Fantastic cars. And it's awesome to be able to drive a supercar and to see two others while you're driving. So I have one in front of me and one behind me at all times, and it's really, really quite an experience. We're actually moving through a little bit of traffic at the moment, getting from one great driving road to another. So it actually gives me a chance to talk because I'm not Chris Harris and I can't flog a supercar up a twisty mountain road, not a mountain road, but a twisty road, and talk at the same time, review the car. I'm not that good. I heard a lot of complaints over the years. Not complaints, but the only real downside of the R8 has typically been said that it's a little too easy, that it's a little too safe. It's the everyday supercar, right? It's the supercar you can drive every day, all the time, and you know, not have the drawbacks, the typical drawbacks of supercars, where they're brash and uncomfortable and loud and obnoxious. You know, you get them on the right road, they're fantastic, but every day they're kind of annoying. This isn't. This is comfortable and easy to drive. So everyone kind of use that as a a con of this car, saying that it doesn't have enough emotion for a supercar, and I don't think that's true, because we've been driving around all day, and just the incredible sound and the sheer violence. I mean, you step on it mid-gear at 4,000 or 5,000 RPM, and the violence of the acceleration is incredible, and just how quickly it will dart through corners and just cling to the road. This is a great car to drive, and it's incredibly exciting. So I don't see how those complaints about this car not having character have any merit whatsoever. Oh my God, it just is so good. It's so good. Oh man, I don't typically fall in love with cars. It's really hard for most journalists to fall in love with cars, to be honest, because we drive so many cars, and most of the time we really drive the cream of the crop. You know, we really get a chance to drive the best of the best, and that makes us a bit jaded. We can actually become quite jaded. So I thought that this car was going to be good, and I was going to like it, but, you know, maybe I'd get bored of it in a couple of days, you know, because actually, to be honest, a lot of fast cars are like that. You drive a fast car, and it's, you know, straight line acceleration is really fun a couple of times, and then it's the same thing over and over. But the noise and the violence and the sheer character of this engine make the Audi R8 such an incredible car to drive day in and day out. I could drive this car every day and not get bored, and that is the important part. And I really, really, really like the way the car looks on the outside. I wasn't so sure I liked the facelift. When I first saw the R8's facelift, this generation R8 facelift, I wasn't sure I liked it. It just seemed a little too different, and I didn't know if it worked with the new grille and the 3 little vents in the hood. But the more I look at it, the more I really, really like it. The new grille is kind of shorter, so that gives it an impression that the front end is visually lower, which just makes it seem sportier, more like a proper supercar. So it looks cooler from the outside. And the whole car just looks, it's a stunner. It really is. It might not be as flamboyant as any Ferrari or Lamborghini, or even a McLaren, because next to the 570S, this car seemed a little bit tame. However, it's such a good-looking car that even next to the McLaren, this stood out. It's not as wild-looking, but it's just pretty. It's just, the lines are right. Everything is just right about this car. It just really, really works, especially in this color, the Ascari blue. It's a really, really nice color, and everyone complimented it on its color. It all goes back to that engine, though. Oh my God, it's the showpiece of this car. It is the centerpiece. It is the whole thing. Over here, there's another rip. Hold on. I've been really impressed with how well this car not only keeps up with the McLaren, but actually sort of overshadows it in a lot of areas. In the real world, the McLaren's going to be faster. Point to point, the McLaren's a faster car because it's twin turbocharged, and once it's on boost, there's just a sledgehammer of torque. I mean, it's just so fast. In fact, I pulled a huge pass. I mean, I just crazy 8,000 RPM blast through multiple gears. I mean, I was really, really on it. And I thought that, and I was ahead of the McLaren. I thought there was no way the McLaren was keeping up with me. And then all of a sudden, 1 second later, it's right up my tail. That 570S is a seriously fast car, and that's the baby McLaren. So it's remarkably quick. In the real world, this might be faster in a launch because of the all-wheel drive traction and, you know, the crazy revs. But in the real world, the McLaren's certainly faster. However, one thing that everyone who was in that McLaren noticed was that this sounded better. It was louder, more exciting. It looked a little bit more exciting. This seems to be the car with a little bit more character than the McLaren. And the steering is really good too. It's not hyper fast. The McLaren is faster than this, and it's sharper, and it's more agile and has more feel and feedback. It's a hydraulic rack. This is electric, and this is the variable ratio rack. But it is good. It's quick. There's a little bit of a dead spot on center, but Germans like that. It kind of keeps you stable at high speed. It gives you a better sense of straight ahead, especially when you're at high speed, you know, like an Autobahn or something like that. But you start to turn it a little bit past that, and it really responds nicely. And it's very sharp and it's very accurate. In comfort mode, I did notice that there were a couple of times just kind of driving around where it felt a little bit different. Like it kind of almost changed the ratio. It seemed like the ratio changed, or I noticed that change because it is variable ratio. And that could be a little unpredictable, which I don't love, so I wouldn't choose that option if I were buying this car. Having said that, it's not a deal breaker. What is impressive is the ride, and it's one thing because there's a few people for rides in this, especially coming from the McLaren and the Aston. One thing they noticed was that the ride is really quite good, especially considering that this car's on passive dampers. I can't adjust them. There's no settings for them, and it's really quite good. It's a little bouncy on really rough stuff. There can be some vertical motion, some unwanted vertical motion over like really choppy stuff, but for the most part, it's supple enough to drive all the time. It is, it's comfortable enough. You don't get a lot of tire and road noise. And the grip is sensational. The grip is outstanding. There's very little body roll. It just feels really planted all the time. It's such a confidence-inspiring car. You know you can push this car hard, despite the fact that there's actually not much feel and feedback through the steering at all. I mean, it's relatively numb, but the chassis is just so good that once you start to push it and lean on it, you start to realize, okay, this is a really, really capable car, and I can trust that this is going to get me through the corner and safely out the other side. Oh, it's pure motorsport. It is pure motorsport. Oh my God, it's so good. It's so good. Anyone who can get bored of that doesn't have a soul. Anyone who can rip this thing to $8,000 and think, don't trust that person. They're a robot. Because, oh my God, it literally sends shivers down my spine every single time. Wow, what an engine. What a masterpiece of an engine this is.
If it sounds like I'm going on and on about the engine, well, it's because I am. The 5.2-liter naturally aspirated engine makes 600 horsepower, but honestly, that doesn't matter. What matters is how charismatic the engine is, how willing it is to rev past 8,000 RPM and make the most incredible mechanical noise doing it. When naturally aspirated engines eventually die, we will miss the R8s more than most. It's a glorious celebration of internal combustion. It reminds me of why we all love naturally aspirated engines. And honestly, it's the centerpiece of the R8. Sure, the R8 is a great sports car, a truly great sports car in many other ways, but it's the engine that dominates the experience. It's the engine that stays with you weeks and weeks after you've driven it. It's what makes you want to keep going back to the R8 over and over again. And honestly, it's one of the best engines I've ever used in my entire life, possibly the very best. The R8 as we know it is going away soon, and will probably be replaced with an all-electric supercar, and that's fine. That will likely be a fantastic car. But it won't have this R8's noise, its drama, its theater. And those are the reasons why we really love sports cars and we really love driving. And that's why I'm glad I was able to spend some time with it before it goes away, and why I'll miss it when it's gone.